welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station travel show, where every third Tuesday we go to Natchitoches, Louisiana. Natchitoches is the oldest settlement in the Louisiana Purchase. It is the oldest city in Louisiana, and it is part of No Man's Land, this historic strip that had no law and order. And this strip goes from Lake Charles to Shreveport. It is part of the Cane River the Cane River National Heritage Area. It is home to the Cane River Creole National Historical Park. It is also part of the El Camino de los Tejas National Historic Trail, and it's also right adjacent to Kisatchie National Forest. And that's what we're going to talk about today, as well as the person who made Kisatchie the one and only national forest in the state of Louisiana. So we're going to be talking about Carolyn Dorman and her Briarwood Nature Preserve that continues her legacy. She's an amazing woman in history. And her story is something that should be shared for generations to come. So I encourage you to go to natchitoches.com, and that's natchitoches.com. And I also encourage you to go to briarwoodnp.org for Briarwood Nature Preserve. So we've got two special guests joining us, as always, Arlene Gould from the Natchitoches Visitor Bureau. Welcome back, Arlene. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Lisa and Nancy, for having me today.
Hey, we love having you on the show. Are you kidding me? It's one of our favorite times. I'm like always looking forward to this. And, you know we love Natchitoches, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're always welcome to come visit. So,
and be careful. Be careful.
Say careful what you wish for and ask for it. Oh my gosh.
Hey, listen, you got everything. You got Cane River Lake, you got meat pies, you got music, you got everything in Natchitoches. Architecture, history, everything. And Kisatchie National Forest. And around the corner, Briarwood Nature Preserve, which we got to visit. It was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And it is a magical place. And Carolyn Dorman, her legacy is incredible. So we're very excited to have Bayli Quick on the show. Bayli, you're kind of new to Briarwood, but welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
And we're very excited. How long have you been there?
I've been at Briarwood since December.
Okay.
Of last year.
Yeah. Cool. What led you to go, hey, I'm going to go run Briarwood and take people on tours and get involved in the nature and the history? What led you there?
So I grew up about 10 miles away from Briarwood in Reedheimer, which is technically where Briarwood is. It's just a Saline address. And I've always had a love for the outdoors. I was an FFA in high school, but I actually went to college for criminal justice. And I just happened to see this job opening, and I applied for it.
Okay.
So I have
I was going to say we should make you the head of No Man's Land, because there was no criminal justice back then. Wow. So you applied for that, and now you're there. And it looks like, there's a lot of change. It's like you're carrying on the legacy. I remember Richard being on our show about a couple years back. And actually it was a year ago. It was a year ago in May. And so him and his wife were really big stewards of the land there, right? Taking care of it and interpreting it. So criminal justice to nature. Do you see crime in the nature zone like that you're in now?
No, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, I bet. That's cool. Well, it looks like you're doing a good job. I mean, do you get to live on site, or do you, trek in every day?
I do. I was on site. When they opened Briarwood in the 70s, following Caroline's death, they built a house for the curator. So all the curators have lived in this house on site.
Wow. Oh, nice. Living in history, like literally, like
right.
Serious. I mean, because this is Carolyn Dorman's home. That's where she was born there, right?
She was, yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about her history and who she was, because, you're working on her land. You're docenting it, you're running tours, and this what I thought was so amazing about the preserve is that there's so many different habitats. There's swamp, there's iris gardens, meadows. I mean, there's trees, forest. So I think it's a really cool place for people to learn about the different, you know, zones and habitats of Louisiana, bogs, all of it. But her legacy of what she did, I mean, she stood up for we wouldn't have that forest without her, right? I mean, it's
No,
got to be pretty amazing to be in her footsteps as a young woman going, like she didn't take no for an answer.
no, she did not. And that's the thing I love about her the most. It took her almost 10 years to convince the Forest Service to create Kisatchie. And from what I've heard, her and her sister Virginia went out on their own and scoped out the areas they wanted to include in Kisatchie. So I know that took a lot of work and a lot of dedication to do that, but just to protect the longleaf pines was her main goal in creating Kisatchie.
Wow. That's so
You-
cool.
The longleaf pine, we've actually seen this happen in different regions. There's the lullaby pine, I think. I'm not going to say it correctly, but
Yeah,
these
loblolly.
lullaby. Thank you. She's coming to my rescue. But when you when you think about these trees, it's something you wouldn't think about Louisiana. You don't really think forest. You even like Florida, you don't think forest, and also Texas and the eastern piney woods of Texas. You get them in big thicket down in southeast Texas too. So it's kind of this interesting zone. Even Georgia kind of has them too. So it's this. I've got to learn more about it. The belts of these pines, because it's not what we have on the west at all. They're different. They're tall. And I think she's really right about saving them, because I know lumber mills want to go in and take them, right?
Right.
So-
That was her during her time when she wanted to create Kisatchie. That was like the number one commodity was longleaf lumber. So they were cutting down all the forests, and she wanted to preserve that. And one way I interpret her wanting to protect them is Grandpappy at Briarwood, which is the co-champion longleaf pine in the state of Louisiana. He's estimated to be somewhere between 400 and 500 years old.
Wow.
I'm thinking closer to 300 years old, but he's still standing today. He made it through the really bad tornado we had a few years ago. But Caroline foresters would want to bore Grandpappy, just take a ring out of the tree to count how many rings he has to determine how old he truly is. And she said, it doesn't matter how old Grandpappy is or how old I am for that matter. And she told Richard and Miss Jessie that if anyone tries to bore Grandpappy, to take care of him. So she was very dedicated to those longleaf pines.
So the Grandpappy, that's actually interesting, because we do so much about trees and the importance of trees right now in climate change, that the more trees we plant, the right trees in the right places, can actually mitigate climate change. And having tree equity as well in certain, places and suburbs and things like that, people don't have trees that, should be there. And I think, I was doing some history research on it, and Grandpappy came up. So is he like the oldest tree in Louisiana, or is he the oldest longleaf? I mean, what would his real designation be?
I think he's the oldest longleaf. He was the largest for as long as I can count back to, but 2 years ago, actually one of my classmates that I went to NSU with found a larger longleaf pine in Kisatchie.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember what district in Kisatchie, but he's only a few inches larger than Grandpappy, but Grandpappy's still the oldest.
So is Briarwood Nature Preserve connected to Kisatchie, or is it separate away? I'm just trying to look at the mapping. Like,
It's
is it
separate. We're only, I think it's 2 miles away from the northern border of Kisatchie. So I think that's the Wind
that's
District
right.
of Kisatchie.
That's right. And okay. So that's like Winfield, but like I remember kind of going when we went to Briarwood. I wasn't driving, so like, I just sit back and look at the scenery and go, "This is cool, man." And I remember going to, but you do kind of go towards even the boundary between Wynn and then where Natchitoches is. So, Arlene, I wanted to ask you, Kisatchie National Forest, how important is that as a recreational hub for locals and then for visitors for
Oh, it's
Natchitoches?
very, very, very important. And I was just thinking back too, I've always been fascinated with Miss Carolyn Dorman's story and going to the library at Northwestern. There's a lot of original letters written by Carolyn Dorman in support of other projects going on, around the state and even around the country. So she was very instrumental in many projects, but primarily, we are so blessed to have had her, take an interest in creating, and helping to create Kisatchie National Forest for Louisiana. Like Bayli was saying, we have several different districts. I believe there's 7 total different districts of the Kisatchie National Forest, and miles and miles and miles and acres and acres and acres of trails, hiking, and just all kind of trails. And one of the trails is the Carolyn Dorman Trail, named after her, and that's actually in the Kisatchie district here in the Natchitoches district. But you have the Wynn district, and then I think the Caney district, and down in Vernon Parish there's a district. So there's quite a few different, ranger
Okay.
districts. But Kisatchie is huge. It's
And the long,
big.
isn't it the Longleaf Byway that goes through it?
The Longleaf Byway goes through. Yep, the Longleaf Scenic Byway. That's true.
That's where we saw the piggies.
I was down that way not too long ago. I went to the Longleaf Vista in Kisatchie. Actually, I went there on the 4th of July, and went up to the Vista and had me a little picnic, lunch packed, and went up there, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. It's just amazing when you get up there.
I'm glad to hear Nancy and I hiked the Longleaf Trail, and I remember that storm came in and got us, and you and Kelly were trying to text us like, there's a storm coming, and we're in the storm.
But this is so cool.
And we were going through, and everybody's like, this is an easy trail, but we were going through mud and stuff and getting up the. This is known as the Little Grand Canyon of Louisiana, and I'm sorry, but like it's a little butte that this is the tallest point in Louisiana, but like having lived in the West and the Southwest, I'm like it's a few steps up. I'm just saying, 'cause this is the magic of the long.
It's a little muddy, but it's all good.
And it's so much fun, and you girls were like trying to message us, and this downpour comes, but then like. And you got some good storms, man. It's beautiful. And this mist and clouds came rolling over the tops of the trees, and you're seeing above. So it is the tall point, So I'm kidding around, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is this whole other forest mountain-ish kind of experience that you the difference going from the West where it's dry. Like I remember telling you, oh, I got to get there at sunrise at this time. And you kept looking at me. Yeah. And so I get out there and it's too swampy to take a photo. Like there's no, that's not happening. This is the humidity and good luck with that. I mean, I had to learn this whole other ecosystem really fast. And you just had a good time with me, didn't you? Arlene? I think you just
I just let you go. I was like, okay, let me on our own little adventure. Like, you know what?
You go ahead, girl.
Tell me all about it when you get back. I've got some numbers for you when it comes to the Kisatchie National Forest, and it's made up of 604,000 acres, and it spreads across 7 parishes. Everybody else has counties. Louisiana has parishes, but it's 50 miles of multi-use trails, and that scenic byway that we were talking about is a 17-mile byway. It's just got panoramic vistas, and you can camp, you can swim in the Kisatchie bayous out there, and fish, and hike, and bike, and horseback ride, and picnic, and ATV trails. It's got a little bit of everything,
It's a magic place. It is Louisiana's playground. I mean, we've been, hiking there, driving there in different parts, and it is amazing to see how tall these pines are and how long their leaves are because they are the long leaf. So I want to go back to you, Bayli. What time in the morning would you get out to try and see the sunrise and photograph it in the swampy land?
I don't really know because I can't see the sunrise or the sunset at Briarwood because it's so thick.
Completely surrounded by trees.
Yeah, exactly. You just
That's
have to
funny.
you have to go to the lakes or the rivers, like Cane River Lake or something. But it's so funny because
Right.
you can in the West, and it's this whole other ecosystem that also breeds all these amazing wildflowers. And you have marshland and swampland and bogland, and which I love.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. And so there's the one thing, the irises. When we came out, I think the iris season had just finished.
That's so
But tell us
beautiful.
about these iris because isn't this one of it's like the most historical collection of Louisiana
Yeah,
irises.
it's the most it is the most historical collection. We have some irises that date back to I believe 1918. So Caroline's involvement with the irises is her and Ira Nelson from Lafayette founded the iris within the same month or so, and they both started writing about them and contacting botanists and so forth across the state, and they ended up finding them together basically. So they started hybridizing them, which there are 5 Louisiana iris species that are native to Louisiana that weren't found anywhere else. So they would take the seeds and hybridize them together, and that's how we have hundreds and hundreds of different varieties of Louisiana irises. So our collection is massive. We have irises that aren't found anywhere else in the world. And it's a very unique place.
So with her irises, these are all irises that were in the wild, in the swamps, and
There are 5 original ones. So we do have those, but the rest of them are varieties that different hybridizers across the state have created.
And they're beautiful. One's more beautiful than the next. I mean, when they're all in bloom, you just walk through the iris. Is it like a bog? It's kind of, I don't know if that's what you call it. Yeah. And it's just like you go from one to the next and you're like, oh my gosh, this looks so beautiful. And you go to the next one and you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, they are. I mean, I have pictures somewhere, a ton of pictures of irises, but it's so neat to go out there when they're in bloom.
when does that happen? When does it
Spring.
Yes. This year they started blooming mid-April and were finished by early May. We had a late season this year, but it's typically sometime in April they start blooming.
I see that you're really active. Go ahead.
We could have one cold spell too late and it'll push them back by a week. It just depends on the weather that winter and the early spring, what they're going to do.
I wanted to tell people to really follow you on Facebook because you're always posting what is going on. You're really active on there. So that's probably a good way for people to know, right? When the iris is blooming is, to follow you on Facebook, right? But you don't just show up at Briarwood, right? Except on weekends. When can people go?
So we're only open 5 months out of the year. That's March, April, May, October, and November, because in the winter and in the middle of the summer, there's not much going on unless you want to freeze or sweat. But the other 5 months are the most perfect months to go. During those 5 months, we're open Friday through Sunday, 9 to 5. And anyone can just show up. But on the months that we're open, I just started really focusing on people who want private tours. So this didn't really happen in the past. People could schedule like large groups during the weekdays, but so many people wanted to do tours this year. In April, I think I went 3 weeks straight where I didn't go a single day without giving at least one tour. And most of the people had read about Briarwood from Facebook, because that was one of my main goals when I first started, is to really have a presence on social media, because that's what most people focus on nowadays, are social media.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's great because, for me, I've been able to, I fell in love with Briarwood when we went there, and just I was in love with Carolyn Dorman's story from the beginning. And
Yep.
Nancy, you've traveled as a woman in nature and all over the world. I mean, her story that resonates with you big time. I mean, some
Big time.
preserve land and
And
documenting it too.
and it's interesting because we know so much more now than what she did, but she still had that ability to open your mind and make you ponder and ask questions. Like I've been doing some research on trees because we were just talking to Glenn Burroughs in Norfolk, England, and I was telling him that
He's a tour guide and he's into trees.
yeah, and he said trees. So I was doing some research on the world's oldest trees, and so I gave him a list of the oldest trees in England. And one of the things I found out during that research was one of the oldest trees, if not the oldest tree in the world, is pine tree. They're pine trees, and the pine trees are like they call them like a pioneer species. They go in where other trees don't want to live, and for one thing, they love like full sunlight. Most trees really don't like full sunlight. We think of them as shade giving, but when they're first growing, they can't handle full sunlight. They need some shade. Pine trees don't. So they come. The birds and animals distribute the seeds of pines, and then the pine tree will grow where other trees won't. And then once the pine trees start growing, they're not meant to stay forever. They make the canopy with shade for maples and ashes and oaks to sprout and grow in the shadows of the pines. And then when the maples, ashes, oaks grow, then comes the blueberries and all the berries and the bushes, violets, and then you get to your irises and the violets and the flowers that will grow on the forest floor. And so it's really kind of interesting. So on the one hand, you're like, oh man, Grandpappy pine tree, but he did his job. And so sometimes there's going to come a time when maybe pine trees will become right now they're common in a way, but they might become rare just because they've been here so long. It's kind of, I don't know, I went down a rabbit hole on trees.
Wow. But do you have berries? Is this something you're experiencing, Bayli, at the Dorman Preserve at Briarwood?
Oh yeah. She explained it right on the nail.
Because you had so many ecosystems, and it's like I want to go and do like a map of like from Georgia, Louisiana, even through Arkansas and East Texas about the woods, like how these pine trees. I don't see so many pine trees here in Arkansas where we're recording right now, but just going through, and there's these belts, like the sequoias only grow up in the Sierra Nevada. So I'm going and the redwoods do their coastal thing on the north, Northern California. So I'm wondering about these pines, if they have a certain belt.
Right. And we were talking about climate change earlier. There's something that I've been preaching for a long time, and that's to protect our native plants. And that was one of Caroline's. That's something she promoted a lot as well. But if we start planting non-native plants and focus more on those, then it's gonna harm the native wildlife. It's gonna throw honeybees in for a loop. So we protect these native plants, and some are very aggressive, but that's what we mainly focus on, our native plants, because once you lose all those native plants, things start changing, and for the wrong reasons.
But this is a huge importance of what Briarwood is about, is you can go and see what native plants look like. When you go in that meadow and there's all these wildflowers in bloom, you're going to go, why don't I have that at my house? And it's not going to cost me as much money once they're established. You know what I mean? So it's like you'll have all the butterflies. Who doesn't want wildflowers and butterflies and sunflowers and, the iris and stuff? So it's, I think what's great about it is that you're opening people's minds, because a lot of times people thought native plants didn't have flowers and that they were ugly.
Oh,
Yeah.
or their flowers were tiny, which flowers, native plants, flowers and the plant itself depends on the water source.
Look at dogwoods. Aren't they native?
I mean,
Dogwood?
I see native, like I've had native plants in my garden that are way bigger than native plants in wild areas because I watered the garden, so the plant got bigger.
Listen, you are in the area of like growing so many amazing native plants. It's not even funny. I mean, it's like, I mean, the entire region is like, I mean, if we were ever to stop traveling, we always say we're going out that way because you can grow things. It is,
Yeah.
got resurrection fern on these gigantic oaks. You have the pines, you have wildflowers, you have iris, you have the grandpappy, by the way. So, and the grandpappy is pretty big. I love the photos you put on the website too of
Yeah.
it circling around. But I want to go back a little bit on Carolyn Dorman too, because when we think about women's stories and women's history, which is so important, and we're this, and it really what she went through as a teacher, didn't she? She was an educator. She was an artist. She was a botanist who did those botany drawings to let you know that this is what it looked like, right? And then when you go in her house is like, it reminded me of places we lived in Kenya. I know. Can I just check in?
We moved in. Everything moved in.
The writer's cabin out there.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool.
what was a writer's cabin to her? Was that like she had a separate retreat, or what was going on there? She had like, was that Virginia's house, or what was going on with that?
No. So it was initially called the Three Pines Cabin, and this was the cabin that Caroline did all of her writings, all of her paintings in. And it eventually just pretty much fell apart, so they rebuilt it exactly how it was and named it the Writer's Cabin because that's what she did there. But hopefully by next year we can open that back up for visitors to stay the night. It's been closed since the tornado in 2019.
Yeah.
That's one of my main goals is to get it back open.
Oh man, I'm gonna go stay there. Just like I would like to be on the number one at the top of the list of people to stay there because you are like in nature, right? You're surrounded in nature.
Oh, yeah.
And you're by the pond area too. It's, as I recall, it's not far from the pond.
No, it's not. It's that's Wings Rest Pond that Caroline had built as a reflection pool for Grandpappy. So you could just sit there and stare at Grandpappy in the water.
That sounds funny.
There were frogs. There's a lot of frogs. There's lilies, and there's a lot of life going on in there. Dragonflies, damselflies, everything's going on. And I think there's something about these ponds that remind us too to reflect, right? You think of on Golden Pond and all of that, but it's a really true thing, isn't it? To have these kind
I
of
want to
ponds
say too that I think Carolyn Dorman, was a great artist. I mean, she sat there days and days and hours at a time drawing everything that she came in contact with out there and documented everything.
And she actually learned how to paint from Kimmy Henry at Melrose Plantation.
Yeah, love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. That's awesome.
That's the important thing, I think, is like all these connections, like, you get into the history of it. It's not just going out in nature and seeing this amazing, I mean, it's magic and beautiful, but you're getting this history of people all connecting together and creating something. And I almost feel like, what is it with the strong women? I think one of them just called us, but but Arlene, but I know it's like, but Arlene, what is it? Is I'm just noticing we keep talking about all these strong women.
I know. Yeah. When she brought up Kimmy Henry, and then you start thinking of Clementine Hunter and, even Kate Chopin and Miss Carolyn Dorman. They were some forces to be dealt with, that's for sure. They were very, very proactive and very in tune to the community and activists and just preservationists. I mean, naturalists. They were a little bit of everything.
I love it. I love it because it's so beautiful. So, Bayli, with the Briarwood Preserve, are you doing groups for school kids and things like that where people can get involved, like kids can learn how to do things, how to get behind a microscope? I know the answer to this, but I just want you to talk about it because I want to come play with a microscope next time we come out.
Yes, I've been trying to promote school trips to come out more, and Boy and Girl Scouts. I actually have a group of Girl Scouts coming to camp in September. And I'm going to teach them about plants and animal tracks and different ecosystems that we have at Briarwood and the importance of them. I had a few field trips in May, and the kids were just, oh, this is the best field trip ever. And
Cool.
they had so much fun.
They learn so much. I mean, things that we take for granted every day and things we see, we don't think anything of until you learn, the history of it and what it is and how it survived and all these other, interesting things. So,
And there's a connection between everything. So when you learn about one animal or plant, you're going to learn about 5, 6 other more plants and animals that keep that one alive and what they do for each other until you follow the chain right up to humans. And where do we get our oxygen?
Right.
It's really true. So event-wise, I see that you have a Tom Sawyer Day. What's that about?
So Tom Sawyer Day, we have it twice a year in the spring and in the fall, and it's where volunteers come out and designate different areas of the preserve, and they help clean trails, trim bushes, pick up sticks, just pretty much everything that I can't do on my own. They come and help out with that.
And cool.
And February, we held the largest Tom Sawyer Day in history of Briarwood. We had almost 100 people in attendance.
Cool.
See, I want to say this is so important. We do so much on tourism on our shows, but we're the focus of travel. And as travelers go out, they want an experience. And I know, Arlene, you know all about this. But, travelers want an authentic experience. And we're talking more than sustainable tourism. We're talking a little bit more than volunteering. But what did you do to give back into the community that you went to? So there's always an exchange when you go. I always talk about when we go to a place that you leave a little deja vu dust, how you go through some place and you go, I've been here before. I know I've had this experience. I'm not going to get woo woo on ghosts and stuff, but I could, but I won't. But it is true. Whenever you go somewhere, a little piece of you is left. And so whatever your footprint is, it shouldn't be in a negative way. And hopefully you're taking some really good memories and something that's going to change your life. So it's like regenerative. And so when you can go to a place like Briarwood, like to me, if I'm on vacation and I can go and help on Tom Sawyer Day, I would put that as something I want to do in Natchitoches as part of my travel itinerary because it's authentic, you're learning something, and it's regenerative. It means that I'm helping that to be there for the next time I come and my grandkids. I'm not having any kids though, but you know what I mean, that's going to happen.
Right.
So I think that it's something, as travel and tourism is morphing, I think that's a very important thing that you have doing that people can plan to do that are travelers. And Arlene, what are your thoughts on that with people?
No, it's something the family can do together. It's outdoors. It's like, it's adventurous. It's learning. It's interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say that you actually learned something about the nature versus just hiking on a trail without knowing what you're looking at. You know what I mean?
Right.
An immersive experience, and you gave back and you learned something. I think learning is key. Bayli, with the 100 people that came out, were any of them travelers or were they mostly locals at this time?
They were mostly locals. A lot of people drove down from Shreveport, which is about an hour and a half from Briarwood.
That's good.
So a lot of people were local to Briarwood, but we had folks from Natchitoches, from Alexandria, Shreveport, a little bit of everywhere at Tom Sawyer Day.
Cool. That's cool. And it's good for locals to know their own area because a lot of times you can live in an area for several years and not even know where you're living as far as Yeah, you can't get to.
I've always been amazed about how people, they just kind of take advantage of things that are there all their life and never experience it.
Yeah,
And I learned that growing up in New Orleans because I wanted to see and do everything. But you'd be surprised how many people live in New Orleans and have never rode the streetcar or have never gone, to Audubon Zoo or Audubon Park, and it's in their own backyard, And the same thing here. You find people in Natchitoches that have never experienced or went out to the plantations or, just even local attractions,
yeah.
Do we have to come down there, Arlene?
Well, because we have traveled our whole lives and we bounced countries from here to there. I learned early on, see what you can see while you can see it. Don't leave it till the end and say, "Oh, I'll see it someday," because you won't. If you won't. So see
put it off, right?
Yeah, you keep putting it off, and there's always something more important. No, go see it while you live there and see it more than once. See it in every season. Because it's going to be different every time you go.
That's the beauty too with what you have open. I understand the different months that Briarwood's open. So March, April, May, October, and November.
Different each. Yeah.
Yeah, each season, and because May, is really summer in Louisiana. I'm just gonna say,
Right.
And October is almost, but it depends. But when you think you have a fall plant sale too, isn't that part of also teaching people about native plants and what they can grow? So that's a fundraiser for Briarwood, right?
And it's also letting them take home a piece of Briarwood as well. Because we're not having our fall plant sale this year. We're focusing on our inventory and having a bigger one in the spring. But I'm focusing on, transplanting our own plants that we have to sell. So I know for sure where these plants are coming from, how they've been taken care of, and I have 100% confidence when I send them home with people.
That's awesome. And then you have a spring picnic too. So next
we do. That's our largest fundraiser of the year.
Okay, so everyone, October is Tom Sawyer Day is October, and then February. Have I got that right for people to get going?
Yep.
And then annual spring picnic April, and then fall plant sale next year. So and spring. So basically, you need to get your butts there, and it's magical. It is. I didn't want to leave, and it's like the country forest. It's like Arlene said, you got to go eat over here, and I'm like, oh, food, okay, but happens in Natchitoches,
but you're right. When you get on, when you're pulling into the grounds or when you're pulling into Briarwood, it's like you're in a whole new world. It's like, oh my God,
it is. Really, even just going through that gate with the big arch.
Exactly.
You're in somewhere magic land,
Yeah.
It's awesome. And Bayli, you obviously are head in, like you're full. You're in it. You're living it, right? And I can imagine it's a lot of hard work because you're doing nature work too, right? So it's
right.
You're busy, so you do need those volunteers.
Bayli, correct me if I'm wrong, but the curator's house that didn't have like floor to ceiling kind of windows, so that you have a gorgeous view out. And sometimes don't you have deer that are just kind of like meandering right there by the window?
Yep, they sure do. And raccoons. I can't. I've had at least 10 come up to the window.
Oh wow!
I mean, they love it. I don't know what they're looking for.
They're watching people TV. Check out what they're doing.
They're like a little dog.
She's cooking dinner. Oh, she's watching TV, and they're watching you watch TV.
Do you even have TV out there?
I don't know.
Obviously, you have internet, right? Do you have TV?
Yeah, we do.
I know. I'm not trying to make it sound weird, but like you are out in the little, little nature zone. It's like, wow. Is anything?
We're off the grid, but we have internet and everything. But my biggest challenge is being so far away from any store.
Oh yeah.
The gas
probably
station.
a good, yeah. How many miles is it from you to downtown, like to our office?
20. I don't know how many miles, but it takes me 45 minutes.
Yeah, so you got to stock up.
But
That's
it's a
about my
beautiful
experience.
drive.
And you shop.
Oh, but it's a beautiful drive. That's the
It
thing.
is, yes, and she's at the very northern part of the parish. So I will say that Natchitoches is a very large parish, and she is at the very tip of the northern part. So
See, Natchitoches wins all the awards. It's the big parish. It's the settlement, the oldest settlement. It's the oldest city. You know, listen, we had to talk about you on the show the other day because we had Visit Pensacola in Florida on the show, and they're like, we're the oldest settlement. But then St. Augustine, Florida says we're the oldest city. I'm like, settlement and city, those are two separate things. But let me tell you, Natchitoches has both. When I just say this on air, oh my God, I'm going to be in trouble. Calls of war.
oh my goodness, too funny.
I know, but then you are related to Natchitoches, Texas, see, in a way. So, and that's the oldest settlement or city. Oh boy.
Well, for Natchitoches, we're both because for the settlement, it was of course established as a trading post, and then you know we are considered the oldest city in Louisiana.
So it is two separate things.
You win. She wins.
Okay.
She wins.
It's okay. It's okay. Nothing wrong with being old, right?
No, it's called, it's not
Wisdom.
old. It's not old. It's experienced.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
Before we go, Arlene, fall season is coming up. I mean, there's always so much going on in Natchitoches. And last time you were on the show, you know, we were talking about El Camino Real de los Tejas. But I do want to know, how did the folk festival go? Because you know, Nancy and I were drooling over there.
Oh my God.
Everybody else
It was
there, but
so much fun. It really, really was. I did. I had a great time. They had some great music, 3 stages of music and great food. And oh my gosh, the exhibitors were just kind of overflowing, you know, and it's so nice to see handmade, homemade crafts and people, you know, utilizing their skills, you know, it was really good. Very well attended. So, and that's probably, you know, even though it's in the middle of the hot summer, Goldman Thibodeau did not make it. He was scheduled, but he did not make it. And, you know, he just turned 90 this week. So Mr. Goldman Thibodeau just turned 90 years old, but he was supposed to perform. We had Gino Delafosse and Amanda Shaw that performed. So and they had Hardrick Rivers tribute. It was really good.
And then
I will say that is probably one of my favorite festivals because it's an air-conditioned stadium in the middle of July, in the middle of summer when it is so hot. But it's like, oh gosh, air-conditioned. Thank you.
It's awesome.
It
And
was
you can
good.
get meat pies and Indian tacos, and Indian fried bread. I remember that. It was so like, the food is good too. So what's
So
coming
now
up?
we have coming up in September, we have the Cane River Zydeco Festival, which is around Labor Day weekend. Yep. And then we have the Meat Pie Festival coming September
Cool.
16th, 17th. And then, of course, we'll have our Natchitoches Car Show at the end of October. Lots of events in October, the Cemetery Tour, the Downriver Tour. Melrose has an event going on, and we have Tap
Darkwoods
beer.
Haunted House.
But this is a good one for you, the Craft Beer and Wine Festival.
We're going to be
It's downtown Natchitoches. That's right.
Cool.
Oh my God. we need to
And
get
then
that.
before you know it, we turn on the holidays in November for the 96th Christmas Festival.
We're going
Tickets on sales are now on sale on our NatchitochesChristmas.com website. They went up yesterday online. So
wow.
all kind of good stuff.
This year we're going to have to try and get there for the Christmas festival. We've never done it, and you know, eventually, I mean, we've done a little bit of Natchitoches in February, but always in July, and somehow we need to change our our arrival dates. But definitely, Briarwood, we definitely want to come back and see you, Bayli, and go on a tour because apparently you take people out on a golf cart, and that looks like fun.
Yeah, we do. I let the visitors choose if they want to hike or ride the golf cart, but I always try to convince them to take the golf cart.
Cool.
I love the walking because of, you know, doing photography and just, I like to be as close, but you know, golf cart tour, I'm never against that.
They're fun. I remember
When we went out to Natchitoches the very first time, we did Natchitoches and we went to Toledo Bend. I think it was Cypress Bend Resort, and They said at that time, and they've changed. They're now Best Western, I think. And the management there said, "Here, ladies, take out the golf cart." And
We're like, are you kidding
me? You're going to trust us with a golf cart?
That could be a dangerous thing. No, but it's beautiful. I love riding the golf cart out at Cypress Bend. Oh my gosh, that's so much fun and so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I would like to
Really,
see
really
the
is.
country by golf cart.
Exactly. Well, did that. Like the guy on the John Deere tractor, with
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
Totally.
Totally, just like that. Just on the side of the freeway, take off when you want to go off. And every time you see a policeman, you go, okay, exit, because you're not supposed to be there. And then go have fun in a town. You don't have to golf. You just have a golf cart.
That's right.
It's cool. It's cool. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure. Bayli, it's nice to meet you on this call, but hopefully
Yeah.
to meet you in person and get to walk around or zoom around on a golf cart with you around Briarwood. And I want to go stay in the writer's cabin. Listen, I'm just saying, I want one night there. Whatever I need to do, I want a night next to Grandpappy.
Yeah.
It's close to the Pappy.
Well, we have to get you and Nancy back here anyway. So when you come, we'll have to work on that.
Okay,
We'll do
good.
it. And I'll bring my bug spray.
Yes, you'll need to spray, huh?
Yeah.
I know. Everyone for Briarwood, go to the website, briarwoodnp.org. Go to Natchitoches. It's natchitoches.com, which is Natchio. I didn't do it right. Let me start again.
Go back.
Natchitoches.com. So
You
it's like
got it.
Natchitoches. Yeah, Natchitoches.com. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We do our third Tuesday show with Arlene and friends over in Natchitoches, so every third Tuesday, come join us, learn more about Louisiana, because guess what? Only in Louisiana, because it's like there's nothing in Louisiana that's in other states. Louisiana is Louisiana. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.